Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and let's get started. What is a GitHub app? By definition, this is how GitHub app is defined in documentation page. GitHub app is a way to define the application to interact with GitHub. GitHub apps are the first-class actors within GitHub. Okay, what does this mean in plain English? To understand this, let's see the next section. Why do I want to use a GitHub app? A GitHub app acts on its own behalf, taking actions via the API directly using its own identity, which means you don't need to maintain a bot or a service account as a separate user. That's even more confusing. Let's imagine a following scenario. You're a tech lead in a company XXX. A new developer named James joined your team. You want to encourage the developer by giving a warm welcoming message for him to make GitHub pull request, thus committing a code. Okay, so you change the GitHub repository settings so you get notification whenever he makes a pull request. So you visit the link to the pull request and manually add a comment there. This works nicely for one developer, but you heard from your boss that team is looking to hire 10 more developers per week to grow the company. It may be just a few minutes to add a comment for one pull request, but that can quickly grow into half an hour or even an hour of work. You can possibly handle that, but you're thinking, is there a way to automate the process? Is there a way that you can automate this? Luckily, GitHub provides APIs that can be accessible through the REST APIs or GraphQL. You can create a GitHub app to detect whenever a new developer makes a pull request, so it can automatically add a welcoming message there. That's just one example of what you can do with the GitHub app, and the possibility is endless. What are some properties of a GitHub app? While we cannot cover all the properties and features of a GitHub app, the following list can give us some idea what GitHub app offers. A user or organization can own up to 100 GitHub apps. You must be an organization owner or have an admin permission to install GitHub app. GitHub app should connect to a personal account or organization. GitHub app rate limits. The maximum rate limit for installation is 12,500 requests per hour. For enterprise cloud, this gets bumped up to 15,000 requests per hour. How to get started with the GitHub app? Great, so you're interested. How can you get started with the GitHub app? A GitHub app manifest is a pre-configured GitHub app that can be shared with anyone who want to use in GitHub repositories. In this video, I'll provide you two different ways that you can quickly get started with GitHub Manifest. Number 1. Start with the sample GitHub app code in a GitHub repository, which is based in Ruby. Number 2. Start with the Probot, which is based on Node.js. Regardless of which process you use, a general process will be similar. Step number 1. Download a base GitHub app either through a sample code repository or Probot. Step 2. Modify the code to make it suitable for your need. Step 3. Run the app somewhere either through your local host or through a cloud, but you need a URL that can be exposed to internet. Step 4. Go through a process to create a GitHub app. Step 5. Install the GitHub app repository in either your personal account or an organization. Step 6. Run and verify that your GitHub app works. Start with the GitHub app code in a GitHub repository, which is based in Ruby. In this section, we'll use a sample GitHub app that is based in Ruby. and you can find this in the following URL. From here, you can find the sample GitHub repository, which you can copy and clone. Next, you can clone this GitHub URL to your workspace. I'm showing an example using git CLI command. I'll open this in my text editor, Visual Studio Code, but you can use other editor. Main code here is server.rb, which contains the complete code that starts the server and where you can define how you want to interact with GitHub API. Template underscore server.rb file contains the code you can build from scratch. One other file you need to pay attention to is .env-example, which contains some of the properties necessary to sync your GitHub app with the GitHub. In our next section, we'll get to see where you can find and fill out these properties. When you can go back to server.rb file, you can find these properties are mentioned throughout the code. Next, we need some place to run our application. To test this, our code already comes with the way to start locally by exposing localhost. However, we need to export this app to internet, so localhost is not sufficient enough. Fortunately, we can use a tool like SME, spelled as SMEE, which is sme.io, to forward to an external URL to our localhost. By just clicking there, we can easily create a URL that exposes our localhost. Later in our tutorial, you'll get to see how you can deploy your GitHub app to cloud. That's it for now. Let's move on to how you can create a GitHub app. How to create a GitHub app. In this section, we'll create a new GitHub app through GitHub. Note that you will repeat this same step for other way to create a GitHub app, which is for Probot. To create a GitHub app for your personal account, click your user icon on the right. Then, go to Settings. Now for organization, only different thing is that as administrator, you have to go to Settings for your organization. Once you're in Settings, scroll down to visit Developer Settings. Select the GitHub Apps, which should be on the first tab. From there, click New GitHub App button. This will bring an interface where you can fill out some detail. Fill out GitHub app name and some description, which is optional. You can then paste the URL to your GitHub app. In our case, this time it will be URL we will get from sme.io. Scroll down and paste the same URL for webhook URL and fill out webhook secret, which is optional. Scroll down further to discover where you can define the permissions to give to GitHub app. You can define once per user permissions and repository permissions. In this demo, I will try to set ones that trigger whenever I create new issues. So, I go to Issues and change the value to Read It and Write. I can scroll down further and subscribe to Event for Issues. Then, I can create a new GitHub app. Once I have a new GitHub app, there are a few properties that I want to copy. First is app ID. Second thing I need is the value from private key, which I can download. I can scroll down to generate new private key. This will get downloaded to my computer. I can go back to my clone file and create a new file called .env. Then I can copy and paste the content from .env-example file. From there, I can fill out some details. I already downloaded my private key and opened my Visual Studio Code. I can copy the content and supply as the value for GitHub_private_key. I can then fill out value for GitHub_app_identifier, which is the generated GitHub app ID when I create a new GitHub app. Finally, I can fill out the details for GitHub_webhook_secret if I created any webhook secret. I save the file and I'm ready. I can type bundle install, which will install required gem dependencies. If you have not yet set up Ruby and gem bundle, please do so. Next, I can run bundle exec ruby server.rb. This will expose my port 3000. Then I can open a new terminal and let SME to forward generate URL to my localhost 3000 with the following command. Replace your SME URL with your own URL. As soon as I've done that, I can visit back to sme.io and can confirm that I can receive a ping. I can go back to my GitHub app settings and select the install app. From there, I can click install button and it will ask me to decide where I want to install my GitHub app. I can select for all my repositories, but I will just select one repository to be installed with the GitHub app. I can verify my GitHub app got installed in my GitHub setting. And I can go back to sme.io and see that it can detect installation. Here's my repository where I can install my GitHub app. I can go to Issues and click New Issues button. I can create a new issue and boom, I can see that this gets detected in SME. And I can also go back to my local server and verify that this gets detected. In our next section, you learn how you can create a GitHub app using Probot. Start with the Probot, which is based in Node.js. In this section, you learn how you can create a GitHub app using Probot. However, the step to install new GitHub app in GitHub will be almost the same. Before starting though, it will be a good idea to give a little introduction to Probot. Probot is an open source project supported by GitHub. It's an open source, meaning that you can download it, use it, and contribute to it. And it has a nice web page in probot.github.io, where you can find nice documentation, which you can find by clicking Docs. You can find many community contributed GitHub apps by clicking Apps. And you can join the community by clicking Community. We'll start with the docs, so let's click there. From there, we'll click Developing an app. We can follow the documentation, but prerequisite is that you need to have your computer to be installed with the Node.js with the npx, which is a package manager. I can open a new terminal and type npx create -probot -app and whatever the name of my app to be. This will prompt an interface where I can bootstrap my first Probot project. I can supply app name, description, my full name, my email address, my user or organization name, and my repository name. Then it asks which template I want to use. It has TypeScript project as well as plain Node.js project. I will use the basic JavaScript one that add a comment whenever I open a new issue. That's it. It will generate files that we can use to develop our GitHub app. I can open this project in my Visual Studio Code. First thing I notice is .env-example file, which shows a sample.env with app ID, webhook secret, log level, and webhook proxy URL. We have seen this before. A different thing about Probot though is that .env file can be automatically generated, as you will see later. There's also app.yaml, which declares some properties. Most of the time, you don't need to change this. You will also notice Docker file that can be built into container. Most important file that you need to pay attention to is index.js file. This defines the Probot starting point and how it interacts with the GitHub. As you can see, this shows how we listen to issues open event and add a comment there. There's a package.json file. It shows some of the information that we provided during our first creation step. You'll also notice how the GitHub app can be started with the robot run./index.js command. Last thing you notice is it automatically generated readme.md file. You can also find code of conduct and contributing files. We are ready to start our GitHub app. Let's open a new terminal in Visual Studio Code in our current working directory path. Then we can type npm start, which will start our server. We can open a browser and go to localhost 3000. You will be brought into a nice Probot start page. To start with the Probot, you have two options. You can start a fresh new GitHub app, or you can use an existing GitHub app. I'll use register a new GitHub app, so I can click the button. I can then supply new GitHub app name. I have a main organization that I can install my app, but I will install this in my personal account. I have an option to install in all repositories, but I will be selective and decide to install on only one repository. I will then brought to a summary page. Now our GitHub app is installed. When I visit back to my Visual Studio Code, you'll see a new file called .env got created and filled with all properties that we need. One thing I have to do is shut down my previous Node.js server. You can do that by typing Ctrl+Z in Windows or Command+C in Mac. Then I can type npm start to restart the server again. Now I can visit sme.io with the URL that you can find in .env file. So far, I see nothing there. I can visit my GitHub repo where I install my GitHub app with. I can click Issues tab. Then, let's create a new issue. As soon as I do that, I can visit SME and notice that the issues event got detected. I can visit back to issues, hit refresh, and notice that new comment is added. I can visit my Visual Studio Code terminal and see that the event got detected. Awesome! We are done for creating our GitHub app using Probot. In our next section, which will be our final section, you'll see how you can deploy this GitHub app in a cloud. Deploy your GitHub app to cloud using Microsoft Azure. In this section, you will learn how you can deploy your GitHub app to cloud. In this demo, I use Microsoft Azure Web App as an example, but general approach will be similar for other cloud as well. Since I'm going to use Microsoft Azure, you also need to have an active Azure account. If you just need to use this for testing, don't worry, you can use a free tier. You also need to make some adjustment to your GitHub app code to make sure that all dependencies and start settings can be handled from Azure Web App. Although there are different ways to deploy your GitHub app code to Azure, probably the easiest way to do it is directly from Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio comes with the two extensions called Azure Account and Azure Web App Service, which you can download and install. After you install, all you have to do is right-click on your project name and select Deploy Web App. If this is first time for you to try this, or your session is logged out, you will be brought to a web page where you need to sign in. Once you're signed in, you're good to go. You can decide to use an existing web app, but I will create a new one. I can select my program and runtime. Make sure that your local version and your remote cloud version matches. Otherwise, this is going to be an issue for failure. You can then monitor the progress in your Visual Studio Code output, but you can also monitor the status from Azure Web App. Once this got deployed, you can visit your Azure Web App console and verify that your application runs fine. Copy the URL if everything looks good. Finally, you can visit your GitHub app settings and replace your webhook URL in saved settings. Test it again with your new change. That's it. I hope you found this video tutorial useful. Thanks for watching and be sure to like, to comment, and to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Till next time, goodbye.